easy for our lives to get hectic and out of balance. All too often, we wake up, go to work, tend to life's necessities, go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again. This all too common theme is a source of distress for many of my clients and listeners, and so many people out there. I wonder if creativity is part of the cure. And today's real life question from a listener is this: I'm not the creative type, but I want to find something to do to create balance in my life. Otherwise, I just work harder, binge on Netflix shows, and eat comfort food. Dr. Carla, do you have any suggestions? And to answer this important question that resonates with so many of us, I am joined by a very special guest, Dr. Vanessa S. O'Neill, who will be sharing her expertise on embracing your creative spirit fully, if imperfectly, and creating balance in your life.
Welcome to Imperfect Love with Dr. Carla Marie Manley, psychologist, author, and relationship expert. I'm here to help unravel mysteries and misconceptions about love, relationships, and mental health issues, plus everything in between. Love is complicated, people are not perfect, and relationships surely can be tough. Together, we'll navigate this messy, imperfect space of real life.
So, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Vanessa. I am so thrilled to be sharing time with you today.
Well, thank you, Dr. Manley, for inviting me, and I'm ecstatic about being here. I'm so happy for you and your podcast, and thank you for inviting me.
It's such a joy to connect with you again. You are the handmade mentor. So, tell us a little bit about you and the handmade mentor.
So, the Handmade Mentor came about because being a creative, I found myself not only creating, but also mentoring others that are creatives, right? So, I do both. I'm a creator, but I also mentor and I help people and myself. So the handmade mentor just kind of fit because what I do is handmade and I'm mentoring. So it just kind of fit. It started out as a, well, you're the handmade mentor. It was like, yeah, actually I kind of am. And
Mm.
so everything just kind of fell into place with that.
And I know that's not your full-time job. I know you are very invested in your regular 7 to 9 job, 7 to 5, however many hours a day you're putting in doing your regular work. So for
Mhm.
this listener's question about using creativity to create maybe some balance, maybe some richness and meaning in life, but it also sounds like this person is saying she's not a creative. So
Mhm.
it's almost a two-part thing. What do we do with someone who feels as though he or she, they are not a creative? Is everyone a creative?
So actually everyone is. And I
Mm.
think sometimes that's the misunderstanding about being a creative. We look at being a creative as the arts or music, or something like that. And being a creative basically is taking something that you like to do and doing it, continuously. So I know I'm familiar with someone that likes to make stick figures, right? And that's what they used to do, is just doodle stick figures, right?
Mhm.
That's a creative act. It's calming, it's interesting, and that's all they did. And they end up turning that into something that, they did. They would create stick figure pictures and, end up selling them. So it doesn't have to be, that's the misconception, that it has to be something that's parlayed, so to speak, as this is an art or music or something like that. Creativity comes in whatever form that services you. That services you. People are creative if they can do makeup. You know, a lot of people who, like to get,
Ah,
they do makeup. I've recently met a little one, right? She's very much into makeup, but she likes to make makeup that looks like scars. Like
wow.
scars, and that's
Yes.
really kind of and right. And so she gets makeup and plays in it, and it looks like she can get something that looks like a bruise, or and she's really into this. And so that's a creative form. And what they have found is that that's her outlet. So it
Yes.
doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be something so traditional. It can be whatever it is that makes you happy. If you like to cook, if you find comfort in cooking, and maybe chili is your thing. I like chili, and I like all kinds of chili, and you decide that you want to start making different types of chili, that's creative. That's
Thank you.
creative.
Thank you for opening up and up that door to our minds to see creativity in so many different areas. And I really love the story about the little one who likes to create scars because she may someday be
Makeup artist.
a makeup artist in Hollywood, or she may be someone who just likes creating scars for the rest of her life,
Exactly.
and that's her thing, and that's
Right.
right. So for someone who is really, and I know how this goes, you get so invested in life, your life, whether it's just work or work and family and kids, and then you feel like I don't have any creative spirit. There's nothing that feels creative about me in my life. It's so out of whack. How would you recommend that somebody find that creative spark?
hmm that's part of my story. I had a traditional, I learned how to sew early on. And so that's what I was doing. But what I found when I got older is that there was so much out there to do that I really didn't realize how much there was out there to act like hobbies to actually do. And so I promised myself that every year I would try something new. Every year I just pick
Uh-huh.
something and try something new. And because we have social media now, it's easy to look at something and say, "Oh, that looks interesting. Let me try that." And so I think the best thing for that person is to first get in the mindset that creativity is not it doesn't have to be traditional, but also think of a way to get out of their comfort zone, and say, well, let me try something. Let me look at something and try something. And then if I don't like it, it's okay. I can try something else. But at least take the first step and try something. So it can be something as simple as making a bookmark.
You
Which is very easy. Get some construction paper and get some glue, and cut out some shapes and make a bookmark. Or you can get more advanced and make bookmarks from resin, or you see what I'm saying. But find something that you want to explore, and make sure that you understand that it is an exploration. So if it doesn't work, it's okay to walk away from and say,
okay.
I tried it. Okay. And then I don't like this, and I let me try something else. And I think once you start trying, I think you'll continue to try.
I'm jumping out of my chair because you were talking about basically allowing yourself to do it imperfectly. It doesn't have to
Exactly.
be perfect.
It
It's
does
just
not.
about, it doesn't have to. In fact, I'm thinking about, people thought Monet, one of
Mm,
my favorite artists, they didn't
mhm.
think many people didn't think he was talented at all because
At
it
all.
wasn't perfect in their eyes.
Right.
And yet you go to a museum and you look at a Monet and you just get chills because it is so imperfectly perfectly just incredibly beautiful.
The right. The acceptance of it being imperfect. I don't know if I shared this with you, but I know, I try to tackle everything kind of head on. And I remember, like I said, being a sewer, I decided I wanted to make these stuffed animals, right? Because I had all this African cloth, and I wanted to make stuffed animals. I thought they were going to be beautiful. I'm going to make all these stuffed animals, and it's going to be wonderful. And I got everything. I went all in, got all the stuffing and everything. And I made the first animal I tried to make was the rabbit. halfway through of trying to make this rabbit, I just said, "I don't like this. This is this isn't fun." It was harder than I thought it was gonna be,
Mm.
and I just said, "Oh, I don't wanna do this, and I don't like it," and I said, "Nope." I took everything that I could back and left it and never tried it again, but I tried it, and that was the key to it. I tried it, and I found out this is not for me, but I tried it, and that led me to try other things, and I think that's where a lot of times we get stuck. We get stuck in looking at how how wonderful something is in the end, but not the process towards it.
Oh, and thank you for bringing that up because it is the process, isn't it? If we're not striving for perfection,
Right.
the process creates the enjoyment.
Mhm.
Sometimes the repetitive activity itself is soothing, and
Correct. Yes.
carving out that time. Even
Mhm.
if you don't feel like you have time, we can usually find 5, 10, 15 minutes once a week at least.
Mhm.
And do you think that's sufficient enough for someone who's getting into the groove of?
Absolutely. I mean, it does it. That's the beauty of being creative. It could be 5 minutes or it can be a day. It's whatever makes you happy. I mean, yes, I guess there's sometimes you would say, "Okay, well, I wanna spend more time with this," and that's okay, but then there's times you'll say, "I don't wanna spend any time with this at all." That is okay. I think once we get past as a creative, and I do believe everyone is creative in some form. My brother, who you would think did not have a creative bone in his body at anything, is a YouTube, he is a YouTube personality, and that was his creativity.
Ah,
Once he started, he likes wrestling. Once he started his YouTube channel, you started finding his how he likes to deal with movies and do clips and put music and all these things to make this video, and they're awesome. But if he had have said, well, I'm not creative. I don't have any, I don't, there's nothing I can do creatively because he didn't play music. He didn't draw, he didn't paint, anything like that. You would think, I'm not creative, but he's extremely creative. And that was his niche, but he had to find it.
and had to experiment to find it, and I love
Exactly.
that story. Now I
Hmm.
have a thought.
Hmm.
Um, I remember back when I was in high school and I was doing an art class, and I worked so hard, and I created this deer in this forest, and I remember the instructor coming up and saying, "Oh, you're not very good at art." And here I was so proud, but yet so
Hmm.
crushed.
Hmm.
So for those, including possibly, I don't know much about the person who sent in the question, but I think that sometimes a budding artist, whether they're 2, 3, 5, 17, 25, whatever they are, has
Hmm.
somebody come in and bop a hammer on their creative spirit.
Hmm.
Intentionally, unintentionally, it still happens. What would you say to that person who then thinks, oh, it's true, I'm not a creative because so and so told me so. I'm no good at art.
Hmm.
I'm no good at being a creative.
I would say look at how whatever it is you're doing makes you feel.
Mm.
Because in the end, it's
I
not
love
about
that.
in the end, it's not about what someone else feels, or thinks about it. It's about how it makes you feel. You know, I, it, to be perfectly honest, I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice by listening to others. Okay. And because not everyone, my mom used to say, not everyone that's in your space is in your corner. And it took me a long time to
What?
understand that I can have a bunch of people in my space, but that doesn't mean they're in my corner. So I tend to take things at a grain of salt. Some things I have, but depending on who it is, may have some merit, but when it comes to how I feel about something, and if, especially when it comes to whatever my art, whatever my craft, whatever it is, if I like it, that's really all that matters is me liking it. Now you might say, yeah, I don't know too much. No, I don't. And it's like, okay, that's your opinion. I'm glad you were able to give me your opinion, but Vanessa likes it. And that's all that matters to me. You see what I'm saying? So I think sometimes we have to really get out of our own way when it comes to other people, because they're not always going to give you that bright, shining, glowing answer that you feel that you might need. That validation, the validation should come from them. If you like it, it's great. Okay. And I would just leave it at that. And it's hard because, we do tend to want to listen to people, but if you're just creating and your creativity, you're just starting, or you're trying to just get some inner peace, you gotta keep that on lock for yourself. You can't let other people. And I would just say, "Oh, okay, well, thank you for your opinion," and keep on going, and just keep on going. That's how I would handle that.
And that's such a brilliant, you've just given such words of wisdom that my heart is, was getting so full because you're so right. I mean, it just struck me when you said it. And I never thought of it that way. It's how you feel when you're doing it.
Mhm,
And so, regardless of whether you can monetize it, whether somebody likes it or things that, if it makes you feel good, like you said, making
mhm.
the chili, making a bookmark, hemming your dress, um,
Exactly.
taking chalk and coloring the sidewalk, whatever it is. And I think, I'm actually asking this question for you. After we're done today, or I'm going to find some space today because I need a little creative, what I hope is creative time. I've harvested some lavender and I'm just going to lay out a sheet and just pull the lavender,
Mhm,
off the stems because it's all dried. And that makes me feel good.
mhm.
I was asked, my husband said, "Well, what are you going to do with the lavender?" And I said, "I don't know. It just feels good to sit with the
Exactly.
lavender, do that, have the dog mucking about in it, and just enjoying that process." So for someone who does something like that, is that a creative act? Because I surely feel good and there's no stress involved.
That is a form of creativity, and what you're doing is it's inner. It's inner, because what you're doing is you're this, and it's a process. You're taking the lavender off of the stalk, and you're laying it out. Then you have that aroma that's coming from it. Your hands,
Mm.
you've got the sensory methods going, because your hands are inside the lavender, and you're dealing with the senses of your smell, and it's making you feel a certain way, right? The fact that the creativity is not going to be there. The creativity started with, you're going to take the lavender off of the stems, because that's a process, right? So you're taking them off the stems, you're laying them out, you're connecting with them, right? You're connecting with the earth, and then that's bringing about some type of a feeling, whether it's a calm or a sense of purpose, whatever it is. Now, what's going to happen, as you know, is you're going to start thinking, okay? And what happens when you start thinking? You're thinking on, what do I do with this next? Or what do I want to do? Or what else can I do? How can I elevate this? That's a part of the creative process. So yes, it is very creative. What most people are looking for is the ending result. What's going to happen in the end? What is it going to be? And they never think about the process to get towards that. Everything that you're doing with the lavender is creative. Then you'll get to a point of, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this, I'm going to put this, and I'm going to make some soap. Okay, well, now you've made some soap. All of it was a part of the creative process, and that makes you a creative.
Thank you. That feels so affirming. And so when I go back to the question that we started with, that's a pretty simple thing. And
Mhm.
we don't even have to do anything with it, right?
Right.
Maybe I can just bag it up and give it to friends in a Ziploc bag and leave it at that.
Well, let me ask you something,
Yes.
Dr. Manley. If you take that same lavender,
Mhm.
right, and that you've harvested, you take that lavender, you lay it out, you then you take it and you put it in a sachet bag and
Mhm.
tie it up. What have you just made? You made a sachet bag, right?
I did.
Now, that's isn't that a creative practice?
It is.
Now let me ask you this. If you go to Michael's or Home Goods or some store like that and you say, I want some potpourri, is that not the same process that you just went through that you're buying?
Mhm.
Isn't that a creative process? So basically, you made a handmade item.
Ah,
Okay. You use your creativity to make a handmade item to give away as gifts, which is the same process for a handmade, an item that isn't made in a store. It's all creative.
and okay, so with that line of thinking, a listener who wants some work-life balance could make cookies,
They could make cookies. They could make
cupcakes.
anything they would. Maybe, you know what? Maybe they could actually make a pencil drawing. I mean, like, you see, you
Mm.
don't have to purchase, I try to tell people a lot of times, you don't have to purchase anything to be creative either. It's right in your home. It could be right in your home. Yeah, this was years ago, and I was playing, and I just wanted to see if I could do it. And I took some fruit and dried it, dried it out, and I made potpourri from the dried fruit. Okay, with I
Ah.
had cinnamon sticks and all of these things. And I didn't go out and buy a bunch of stuff for it. I had fruit that I didn't want to go bad, so I used it and took some cinnamon sticks. So it doesn't have to be expensive. You just need to what you need the create what you need is an idea. That's what you need. It's not necessarily being creative. It's just having an idea to do something. A friend of mine during COVID got bored and she saw some videos and she's a model. That's her craft. She's a model, but she wanted to do something artsy. And so she decided, I'm going to take some crayons. She had these box of crayons and she had some canvas. She said, I'm gonna take these crayons and make something on this canvas. So she strapped the crayons to the canvas and took a blow dryer and and melted the crayons and it melted. So it was almost
Oh
like
my
paint,
goodness.
right? And it just made this cute little painting. And you could see it was all the crayon colors just, draining down on the canvas. And it's the cutest little painting, and she was so tickled by it. If you could see how tickled, and then her being tickled, she kept saying she was proud because she started snapping pictures and texting them to everyone. Look at what I
Oh,
did. Look at what I made. Look at what I made. That wasn't, you see what I'm saying? She didn't say, "Oh, I'm not creative. I can't do that." It was just something she thought would be cute and tried it and it worked out.
and it made her proud.
And it made her
It
very
made
proud.
her proud.
Yes,
Isn't that and that's just such a joy going back to that, what you said earlier that I just really loved. It depends on how it makes you feel. That's
correct.
what and that
Yes,
made her feel good and proud and
and
empowered
accomplished.
and
Yes.
accomplished. And
Mhm,
so, okay, this is excellent, and I feel like we've really given attention to the entire process that we of using our creativity, moving into it. Now,
mhm,
one more thing is how does this then create balance in our lives? How so we now you've given us steps for
mhm,
understanding creativity, knowing we're all creatives. Now,
mhm.
how can this create balance for someone who overworks or has just too much going on and then just veges at the end of the day and doesn't feel good about it?
Well, it's just that. So if you're working, you're taxing your mind and your emotional state and everything is so rigid, right? That's work. Okay. Then
Mhm.
you come home and home is, even though home is supposed to be that, comforting place, home comes with its own set of challenges, right? And then
Yes.
you get on the couch and you binge watch whatever, okay? Which is relaxing, but relaxing doesn't necessarily mean that it's fun, embracing, positive, it's just what it is. So balance, to me, having balance in this sense means that you need to do something that's the opposite of the rigidity, okay, that you have, all day. So what you're doing is now you're bringing in that breath of fresh air. You're bringing in that,
Mm.
you're bringing in what makes you happy, what makes you laugh. Television makes you laugh, yes, but it's not, television is not inward, right? It's not something
It's
that's
not
coming from,
restorative.
right, it's not restorative, and it's not coming from it's not emotion, it's just emotional, but it's
Mm.
not necessarily inward. It's not something that's coming from you, making you feel good. It's not something that's making you feel accomplished. It's not something that's empowering you. It's just something that you're doing. So being creative, finding that sweet spot of something that makes you truly happy, that is the balance. That's going to tip the scale, and it takes you from the mundane to you. It takes you from the mundane to the positive, empowered nature that you should have within you, that you should release and let out. That's how I see it.
Oh, that is brilliant and a perfect place for us to wrap up. You've done such an incredible job of honoring and working with the important question about using creativity to create balance and inner harmony. So, my goodness, Dr. Vanessa, you are amazing. Now, before we go, please tell our listeners where they can find you in your non-other work hours.
Okay, so you can find me at on my podcast, the Handmade Mentor podcast, which is at www.thehandmadementor.com. You can also find me at by Vanessa S, which is my other website, which is www.by Vanessa VANESSA.com. Okay, so those are my two websites. And then you can also find me on Instagram, the Handmade Mentor, and by Vanessa S.
So easy to find you, but I understand that today is a very special day, that something has just come into creative birth. Please do share if you don't mind.
Yes, and I was really excited to hear from you because I wanted to share. But a couple of weeks ago, my new book, The ABCs of God, a reflective journal, released.
Mm.
And this is a picture of it, and I'm actually really proud of this. It's a journal. What I've done is I've taken scriptures from the Bible, and I've used the ABCs because the scriptures are, they start with ABC and they go throughout the alphabet. But what I love about this journal is that it is a prompted type journal, but the emotions that it prompts is random. So you might have a scripture that is going to make you reflect, or you might have a scripture that makes you feel gratitude. You might have a scripture
Mm.
that puts you in the mindset of thinking of something worldly, something that, that's to come. Or you might have to go, introspective, right? So it's not a feel good, I'm just going to feel good. It really takes you places. It's really transformative. And that's what I love about it. It's a lot of space to write, but there's a lot of thinking involved. You have to do the work. And what's going to happen is as you get to each scripture as they're laid out, it's going to trigger something, different. And it's not the same every day. And that's what I really love about it. It's called the ABCs of God, a reflective journal. And it just released a couple of weeks ago. You can find it on Amazon in print copy only.
Excellent. And before I ask you, if you don't mind sharing just one prompt, it came to me as you were talking that journaling, of course, is a
Mhm.
creative process.
Yes, it is. It
And so
is.
it's no surprise that you have created this. We forget that journaling is an important and reflective creative process because no one journals in the same way, with the same words, with the same energy. Do you mind just popping it open and randomly sharing one prompt?
Sure. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do it this way. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna open something up, right?
Okay.
I'll start right here. And so this one says, Okay, so this one is rejoice ye in that day and leap for joy, for behold, your reward is great in heaven. Okay, so and this came from St. Luke 6:23. So this is a reflective, right? It's a reflective, and then it's asking for a time where you felt rejoiced. It's saying, okay, this is a rejoicing time. At what Can you name a time, or can you remember a time in which you were rejoicing about something? That's what today,
Today, my
right?
time with you. This is so much fun. I could journal about that immediately.
And then after you write,
Oh,
then the next page, it has gratitude.
a space for gratitude.
Yes. And so after so you might have some deep introspective thought, but then the next page you have gratitude. And so that's what I love about it. It's 145 pages. And I'm really proud of it.
As
A-
you should be.
it's
I'm snagging a copy today because I will tell you, I believe that whether we're single or in relationship, gratitude, and research shows this in relationships as well, gratitude is one of the best things we can do in life for ourselves, for our relationships, is be in a place of gratitude. And having a journal that reminds you to be grateful, absolutely, I'm on board. I am ordering a copy today. So yes. So, my most wonderful Vanessa, Dr. Vanessa, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. It has been such a joy, such a privilege. And any other tidbit you'd like to share before we sign off?
I just want to say to your audience, first, I want to say to you again, thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me. And as always, it was a pleasure getting with you. I always have a good time with you. And thank you for what you do. You are a massive force in our as a creative, having someone as yourself understand us in the way that you do. And I'm talking about creatives. It means so much to me. But I do want to say this as my last words. Don't allow the traditional thought of creativity to not allow you to pursue creativity, right? Like being creative is being creative. And like you said, you just gave me a thought, Dr. Manley, about journaling. If you're someone that likes to write, right, and you just like to maybe write words of wisdom, you can write words of wisdom and make them a card, an everyday card, right? For someone to,
Mm.
right? And you're not doing anything except for writing these positive thoughts and these positive affirmations and having other people take them and use them. That's creative. And see, we have so many creative spaces. So I thank you for the platform. And I would just like to say, just think about what you like to do and let that lead you. You'll know when it's right because your intuition will tell you.
And it'll feel good.
Good. Yes.
Good. So, on that note, I'm going to offer a paraphrase of a quote from Dr. Vanessa. And this is a wrap up quote. People often struggle with being imperfect because of the perceptions they have of other people's reality and other people's perceptions of them. So let's just let go of the idea of what other people think of us, what we think they think of us, and just let ourselves be imperfect and be our imperfect best selves one day at a time. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for sharing your time with me today. Remember, you have the power to transform your life and love fearlessly, if imperfectly, and it's my privilege to help you along the way. You can find more life-changing content, including my books and other podcast episodes, at drcarlamanley.com. Feel free to submit your own confidential questions through my website. I'll do my very best to include your issue on a future episode. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Until we connect again, this is Dr. Carla Marie Manley wishing you oceans of blessings and love. Please note, this podcast is psychoeducational in nature and is not intended to replace formal mental health support. Please contact your healthcare provider or emergency hotline if you need psychiatric care. And as always, please take good care of your amazing, wonderful self.